Tight budget? Some have it, some don't this year. But here's the thing. No matter what it is, creative ways to approach a problem is what we're going to start talking about. Because at the end of the day, you're running a business. Don't you want to effectively use your dollars anyways? So we're going to jump in on the tight budget equation, some that are having that challenge. And this could also be personally as well. When we talk about coaching, right, Roxana, it's not just companies. We're actually talking about personal people as well. And there's a lot of models that are out there. And I think it's also a mindset shift of how people need to think and approach what coaching will give you. And I think that's something that we probably need to dive into. So what are some of the things that you're noticing out there when it comes to some creative approaches that people are taking this year?
I think people are still looking to find creative approaches, because I think what happened with coaching is that it was so expensive, and people whenever they think about coaching, they think about these expensive programs, and the tendency is, well, I can't afford coaching. And I mean, you know what I'm talking about. You come from the Agile coaching world. You know how expensive Agile coaches are. But it's not just them. It's, if you look at business coaching, executive coaching, whatever kind of coaching, you name it. It's this idea that, yes, it has to be one-on-one, and yes, it has to be expensive. And I find that the need has increased, especially with the crisis, because now people are looking for solutions that nobody has and nobody had to come up with. So something completely out of the box, because, hey, this has never happened before. And what we're going through right now, it hasn't stopped, is we still have to figure out. So the need is there, but not just for individuals, but also for teams. And this is another thing that we can talk about, especially in the context of motivating and engaging people, and in helping them come up with some creative solutions about what they can do next. So I see the need is there, and I actually see very few people who came up with some flexible solutions that they can offer, because the quality still needs to be there, and the health and the level of service that you provide still needs to be there, because the need for development and transformation is so big. But I've seen very few service providers in the training and coaching industry that create some flexible solutions for people to actually afford to get them and to help their businesses. Because the thing is, we help them grow their business, and then it just comes back to everybody. So I think it's a win-win in this kind of flexible approach that we want to talk about today.
Definitely. And I'm going to throw in, when we talk about tight budget, I'm also thinking about time as well in the equation, because time is money as well. And we tend to forget that. Now, I'll take my perspective of being in the Agile space, which is highly predominant of getting coaches at companies. I have, through the years, tried to change the mindset that we didn't have to be there 100% all the time on site. I mean, it was extremely costly. You either had to fly people in, you also had a limited pool to pull from if you didn't want to pay for the travel budget as a company. And then also, when you have people just there, most of the time, since we're working with change and people really necessarily didn't like sign up for it, it wasn't their dollars, so to speak, I would just be there. And it wasn't very strategic in my mind. When I've been in a couple of engagements where they approached it in a different way where I was already working remote and I would come on site maybe 3 days a week, every other week. I had one client that outside of the contract and the expectation that I was able to move in that direction. Most of them have a hard time grasping it around their heads. And I think a lot of it had to do with because where people were working at the time. Now, since 2020 has passed and the landscape for corporations are changing, this is opening up that model in a very different way. Even when the people weren't going to work remote, I still could have found different ways of capacity to do it. Okay. I'm going to leave it at that. But now I don't really have to argue that anymore and plead that case because companies now are offering more flexibility and work-life balance for employees to allow them to be working from home. Companies are also looking at their pool of talent and not limiting the city that they belong in or the cities that they're located, that they can look outside of and get really good talent now. So the whole paradigm has shifted and opened up. So what does this start to look like? Well, we can look at it a couple ways where ad hoc coaching, for example, could be an option. What do I mean by that? Well, we tend to, for Agile coaches, purchase everything in the kitchen sink and help us with our transformation. Well, that's a big, gigantic ask. Now, for me in my private business, I niche down and I specialize. I only work with Scrum Masters. What would that look like in an ad hoc perspective with a very specific problem and need at that given moment and work that way first? What would the budget look like there? What would look like the time involved in the people working with you? Because one of the challenges that I see a lot in organizations is people's time to work with the coach. And so we're always dancing around to get their time. And so that's why I bring in the time equation, is because we have to also find flexible ways to allow people to still do business as usual, but at the same time, work on their improvements. Now, that's where the birth of things like you and I do, where we have online group coaching programs that are flexible, that allows people to do things within their day, but also work on their professional and personal development at the same time, but at a sustainable pace.
Exactly. I think this is the key, the sustainable pace, and this is why I also believe in programs that have some group element in them, because that gives you, and I'm not going to get into details here because I can, but the social learning component has to be there, because that's how we learn best. Because you need, whenever you have that community that gives you the support and the push sometimes to keep doing things, that's when you learn best. And it's not about learning about stuff, but it's learning how to implement, the how to embed that learning into what I need to do, not only what you need to do. Because that's why people end up, as they go to one course or another, they end up saying, yeah, but all fine and nice, but that doesn't apply to me. So you want, that's the power of the group. And that's why it's essential that it's there. And related to what you just said about time, because that is crucial, especially now, people are gonna make the time, because it's all about making the time. We all have the 24 hours in the day. It's not that some of us have more time than others.
It's really how you use it and where the value lies in it, right?
Exactly. So what I find is that people will make the time, especially when they are in some kind of group. That is essential for accountability. Because that's what we're talking about. When people say, I don't have time, it's either a matter of that's not important to me, or a matter of I can't hold myself accountable. I need some, and this is why accountability buddies that's a very cool concept that actually works, because that's when you get to make time, because you know, hey, I'm going to meet those people and they're going to help me and they're going to support me, and I can help and support them, because that is
great
a
to have
motivator for
like people when it comes to accountability buddies, because one of the things there's a thing called personal agility that's out there in the agile community that they created, which is great, and it could be used in many different ways. But when we are surrounded by alike people with similar goals, accountability buddies become far more valuable and beneficial.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. So right now I am so busy trying. I do overcommit. That's my problem. But again, high achievers tend to have this issue. But I don't regret it by any chance. I've learned to just take away the things that aren't important. And I have a group that I work with to finish up my final pieces of my NLP certification that I have to show. Well, doing all of these individual things takes a long time, because you have to do demos to demonstrate each one of these things. But also, if you really care about your craft and doing it, you don't want to just do it to do it, right? I see a lot of these workshops. Sorry, but I love certifications, but at the same time, there's a lot of people that have this feeling. What really matters to you, the paper or actually what you're learning and how you're going to apply it in life and career? And most of the time, they're just a one and done, like getting a haircut, right? It's not transformational by any means. In the accountability buddy, what I've learned is not only does it help me keep on task, I have people that I can talk about my challenges. We talk through things. I can ask questions, and I actually learn from them. And I also experience transformation with them, because I see and they see myself changing. And it's almost like a mirror, where last night, for example, I was doing one of our exercises, and I'm usually, you know me, I'm goofy. I'm just like, and I like to have fun. And one of them that I paired with never worked with me when I started coaching. And she said, wow, Veronica. She goes, I never worked with you when you started coaching, and you turned into a different person. And I said, what do you mean? She said, you just like flip from the outgoing extrovert that you just really get into it, and you're just like really focused on me and asking questions and really wanting to learn and understand me. And you just turn into this different mode, relaxed and what might have you. And something I never noticed. And it felt good. And so when we talk about transformation and accountability buddies and these group coaching, people, I don't know if I would get that when you just have a accountability buddy just to make sure you do your tasks, is my point. Mm-hmm. And that is so profound. Now, I'll take it and start bridging over to another topic, which I think you're going to get interested in, is we tend to see a lot in organizations when they're getting coaching or consulting, right? Sometimes we don't even know the difference anymore. I'll leave it at that for another topic. That professional development in the HR space, right? Usually that's where it sits in organizations, is a completely handled separately. And that's an opportunity. It's a problem that I'm seeing. It's a challenge that we know that there's a huge disconnect, right? We talked about in our last show, 12% of things that you learn, or 12% of learners that go to a professional development only apply it in their jobs. What does that tell you?
Yeah, exactly.
So it is definitely one of those things where that opportunity is to bridge that gap. Learning and coaching and mentoring, how that creative needs to be coupled with each other. And so think about the dollars that you're spending in professional development. A lot of these companies are outsourcing some of these things. Or you have these full-time employees. Mm-hmm. And you have all this money that people are spending in agile transformations. What would that look like if we took a step back and strategically found the connecting patterns between these two and found a better way to approach it and reframe ourselves into better ideas that actually will solve our problems in the organization?
Well, and that's what people are looking for right now, right? And this is what we're talking about. You can't keep doing what you've done before and expect that you're going to get different results, because it's simply not going to work. That's actually the definition of insanity, as we all know, right? So no. But what to your point, you're absolutely right, and I can't stress this enough. Learning is not an event. Stop making learning events, because that's not learning, that's an event. Learning is a habit. Learning is the practice. So unless you're gonna make it a holistic learning experience, it's not gonna work. It has to be the full experience, and learning is not just the course or the workshop that you're attending. It has to be supported by coaching, by mentoring, by a whole other set of supporting tools that everybody in the HR L&D world will have at their disposal. And if you don't have an HR or an L&D department, when you're looking for consultants, external consultants to come in your organization, look for people who actually give that kind of support on a longer term that actually helps your people practice the learning and embed it in their work. That's when it's going to work. Exactly. Because otherwise, we're wasting money and time and energy.
And I think we have one of the captions that's probably sitting there, since you have them, about 95% of
I deleted it. So
emotions. 95% of our emotions, beliefs, and values are what create habit. That's coaching, folks. That's all about mindset. And all the skill sets in the world, right? This is like I'm going to call it a Veronica quote. I don't know if it exists out there, so I'm just going to do it. All of the skill sets in the world aren't going to mean a damn thing if your mind isn't whole in the right space. And it also goes along about self-image. Our insecurities hold us back from effectively applying skill sets. And this is a tough thing. How many of you out there are going to admit that you're insecure?
I don't think anyone's going to reply to that.
But that's the problem. Now, we're talking about tight budgets and getting back to that. Why we're going into this is think about creative ways on a tight budget that you can take a holistic approach and find a person or group of people that actually take a holistic approach. And what would that look like on your dollars and your budget in your organization? Are you still silo thinking your approach to solve a problem that really needs to take a step back and find the connection between all of it?
Yeah, that's
how much money would you actually spend on the bottom line?
Exactly. We already know at the end of the day, it's about the business, right? How is your business going to benefit from that? What's your return on investment and your return on expectations going to be? Like, if you don't answer these questions, don't bother. I mean, you can create an event that's nice, but
we talk about business agility, right? I think that's the better term to say than an agile transformation, because if you think about only agile transformation, most of the time then you're only pigeonholing and siloed thinking. When you say business agility, people tend to go, oh, my business, which means everybody under the roof, right? And when we talk about tips on coaching options for great results, I would say tip number one is take a holistic approach to your problem.
Yeah.
especially when it comes to people, which most of the time when you're actually doing a quote unquote transformation, you might be buying a process or technical advances, but unless they're robots doing it, don't discard that you have a people problem as well.
Well, exactly. I mean, and do you need that kind of program for a robot? I don't think so. So I think now we're talking about what you can do for sustainable development and transformation. Because when you talk about that, you're talking about transformation, really. You're talking about changed behaviors. If you want to see changed behaviors, you're not going to see them after one day or 1 week or not even 1 month. So there has to be, and that's why I'm really a fan, and I'm lucky that way, because I come from Romania. I was working with European countries even before the whole virtual thing hit us with COVID. And I knew, especially for virtual environments, you cannot ask people to stay with you for a full day for a training. You can't ask people to stay with you online, not even for half a day. That's just insane. It's not reasonable to ask them to do. And what is the purpose of that anyway? Just to stay together? No,
and the science behind it is
way.
An hour and a half. The science behind it. I remember when I was in my program with the Neuro Leadership Institute. So I'm quoting this from them. I think they would probably know what they're talking about. A bunch of neuroscientists, right? That it's at the average of an hour and a half that you need to keep people. But I still see all day workshops, all day training classes, and even half day is too much, folks.
It is.
I love stretching it out, even though the program was long. I did not mind doing 2 days a week for an hour and a half in this program, because it allowed a couple of things. And I actually gave them the feedback and I said, you know what? I like how it's short, and yes, you did the science bit, but I'm going to give you the human feedback of how I had the experience. How many times have any of you guys learned, and this is how I experienced, that you learn something, you need about at least 24 hours to digest what you learned and kind of really think about it. And you kind of need to step away from it in order to let yourself open. I talked about sometimes on the platform, you know, when I'm learning, so a lot of people get anxiety, or, you know, that they always say confusion is the beginning of learning. Well, confusion also puts you in a threat state because your emotions are going up. So there's a highly beneficial to allow the person to step away from the classroom and get relaxed, and then let's start things digesting. So that downtime, I think, is highly valuable. And I'm sure you probably experienced it, not even probably strategically the way you approach it, but just by nature of your circumstance when you were working with all these lawyers across Europe.
Yeah.
It's a huge opportunity for us to start thinking about it in general now. When we talk about tight budgets and your coaching options, one is you don't have to bring anyone on site anymore if that is a financial issue. Two, you probably have a better reach, because if you have people in multiple locations or in different countries, now you not only are not thinking about paying for the travel for the person coming to teach it, but you're also paying for the travel probably for a lot of these folks to come to an event. I've seen that a lot when we used to do things, you know, everyone flying in. And I would love, okay, I'm going to just put my little wish list seed of hope. All the money that companies spend on stuff like that, I would rather have them see them keep an employee than lay them off. Especially the workers, which it baffles me that they decrease the workers and keep the leaders. Oh, that's a whole other conversation on its own. Why wouldn't you keep the workers and just minimize the amount of leaders you have and teach the workers how to be leaders?
That's for another day.
Yes. So, yes, I had to plug that in because it's me. So, tips on coaching options. So, let's go over what we have so far, Roxana. So, we talked about
We talked
pattern.
about the flexible approach, right? And when you talk about flexible, you don't talk about full day events anymore. What I love doing and what I started doing long ago is I'm actually offering workshops that are virtual, that are 2-hour workshops, a week apart. And the reason I'm doing 2 hours is because people sometimes they need to take a break. They will have questions and answers. And the whole point of that is to also make it practical. So we need to be able to work on the stuff that we're in, some practical exercises for people to remember. And the reason I'm saying is have it a while apart, just as you said. First of all, because that way you have bite-sized information that people can digest better, and they are actually able to apply it from 1 week to the next. So then the next week, when they come on the second session, they already have some questions about the first one, and they just build from one session to the next. They build on that.
I know we're always going to rush things, right?
Exactly. So you have time. They make time because, again, it's doable, right? An hour and a half to 2 hours, that's more doable than 4 hours or 6 hours or whatever. It gives you the actual results and benefits that you can start seeing from 1 week to the next. And it also gives you the cost flexibility, because you can, that way you have a longer period of time that you're working with them, and they can pay in installments, or they can, you figure it out. So it doesn't have to be, it can be bulk, but it can also be in a flexible approach to payments. And that's more doable, because the whole point of that is, first of all, make it happen rather than not. That's what I believe, right? If I can help, I would rather help than not. And then we work with your budget, with your flexibility, with your schedule, with your time to make it happen. But when we say, okay, we're going to make this happen, then you will know that we discussed together. And that's when companies and people who are in that program, they're going to be more accountable, because they will know, hey, that's actually for me. And that's actually going to benefit me.
Speaking some trends that are out there. Now, obviously, my program is going to be evergreen. And some people are like, what's evergreen? Well, that's probably because it's not as common out there. Exactly. You see a lot of cohorts, or just, when it comes to coaching programs where they start on a specific date and they end on a specific date. That's not what I'm interested in. I'm actually interested in full flexibility where people can come in.
Exactly.
It's for a specific time, but I'm giving it enough time for they can work at their own pace, and they actually can go back into work and apply it and then come back. So it's extended out in a time box, but the time box is big enough, right, for them to learn and apply in real life. So I learned teaching from the back of the room. And you do these 4 C's where, you do your connections, you learn a concept, and then they have concrete practice. Well, concrete practice is supposed to serve as the practical application that you're talking about, Roxana. But here's the thing. It's not real still. And so they leave, even though we try to do this brain science type of teaching, it's still teaching in a short thing, and they're not necessarily applying it in real life so they can come back with particular questions. I don't know about you guys, but I learn best by learning something and actually physically doing it, and then have my questions while I'm doing it. And we can start creating that type of flexibility. Now, that's why I'm not really into cohorts anymore.
Because, and I love that you're not, because that gives you, that puts a time limit now.
Well,
to learning.
How many times have you signed up for a program that didn't meet your dates personally?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why I love the evergreen kind of programs, or the kind of programs that let you in and out depending on what you need. And that's what, so
your community does that, right?
Exactly. I don't mind when you join, and you can decide, hey, you know what, next month I'm going to take a break. The only thing is when you join, the rule, let's say, would be just stay with us for a month so that you can actually get something out of it. So that's like the minimum requirement for you to stay with the group. But other than that, you can come and go as you need to, because exactly that's why. Because sometimes you have these burning issues and you have this need, and you get to discuss, you get to see strategies, you get the group coaching, you get everything. And then it might be a period of time where things are just not happening. And that's when you can still decide to stay with the group, or decide, hey, you know what, this month I'm going to take a break and go read some books, and then come back and ask you guys some questions.
And I used to be one of those people that had a hard time if I wasn't in person in class, and I would fly to cities and everything. And I'm not that way anymore. Mm-hmm. I love having the flexibility of popping up a course segment and watch at the same time, which is, by the way, before we got on, I was doing that, in this business program that I'm in. And and I ask my questions after I do it, and it works great. We have this belief that, you have Miro and Mural like hopping because it was like the next best thing to create the setting of a classroom, because everyone had to be together and it had to be this way and so forth. But you're still forcing it into a box is what I'm trying to say. Now, there is variations. I'm not saying one or the other, but I'm just kind of pushing the what if. That's all I'm saying. Mm-hmm. What if we stop drawing inside the lines and actually just remove the lines and allowed these variety of different approaches for people? Because our lives. How about if my learning, which I learned the best and most productive actually in the mornings. So if I had an opportunity to do my learning, I'd probably do it in the morning. And wouldn't it be great if I had the choice to do that? How about if you're a night person and you wanted to do it at night? Well, everything is so structured now that, or was, I'm going to say it's not anymore, because people are pushing these boundaries today. And the same goes for what would that look like in models where we allowed more flexibility when it came to a lot of these traditional coaching and consulting, right? You'd see them all come in, right? Monday about by noon, you saw all the suits and the suitcases come in organizations. It was funny. I was one of them sometimes. But I really did wear the suits if I had to. I'm like, seriously? That is so old school mentality, but that's a whole other conversation on its own. And then they all leave on Thursday. So funny. That's kind of like, how many of you have worked at organizations? It's like, oh, here they come. Oh, there they go. And why does it have to look like that? It's so constraining in a way.
It is. I mean, sometimes, but the thing is, sometimes you really have no choice. If you want to bring people who are, again, in different countries, different cities, whatever it is, and they are in the same field or in the same area, the same department, and you want them to meet and socialize and learn and brainstorm and do all of that kind of stuff, that is fine. Okay, I mean, bring them. But don't stop it there. That's what I'm saying. That if you want it to have real benefits, you don't want to stop it there. I mean, I know because I've sent.
You mean the one-on-one?
Exactly. I've sent people to very, very reputable leadership programs that were a full week that was a full week program, right? And it's true. Okay, you're there, you're in flow, you meet people, you talk to them, you learn a whole bunch of new stuff, and you soak the information up just like a sponge because you're there in that environment, and it's so cool. And then you fly back, and then
they happens. Spin up a Slack environment for everyone to keep in touch, and it lasts for about 2 weeks and then dies off.
I mean, no, that's
I know you guys never
no.
been in that.
Exactly. That's why, no, just that's when learning is just an event, but you have to support it with coaching or with some kind of continuous, because that's what we're talking about, continuous learning. It's not just a one thing, and then you support it, because guess what, when people get back to their office or at home, even worse now, right, they get back home and they start doing the same things that they were doing before, because they don't have the environment, they don't have the support, nobody understands. Do you think their boss is going to understand what it is that they learned during that week? No, their boss is gonna expect that they see the results immediately. And guess what? The results are not gonna be there immediately, because behaviors don't change from one week to the next. So you want to get the support. You want to talk to the boss. You want the boss to support that person who just took the training. You want them to be in a coaching environment, group coaching, individual coaching, whatever works for them. That's another set of flexible approaches.
Coaching, and it's that's
exactly
what calling out. So when we talk about tight budgets, I'm going to get back to just my own experience. And I have experience either being coached and giving coaching. So I'm going to take it both ways. And I'll start with the obvious of the agile coaching. I don't necessarily have to be there all the time. I really don't. Now, it might be where we have to learn and adjust and pivot. And there's been a lot of times where when I'm working with the leader, I would be like, do I really need to be here 40 hours a week? Do you want to drop it down to 30? And then I can extend the engagement longer. I actually have done that. And I was like, I don't need to work 40 hours.
But how many people do that, Veronica?
Well,
you do it. How many?
Because I'm independently managing, and the people that I did this partnership with that got me the engagement were okay with it. But here's the thing. You work with these big consulting companies. Hell no, they don't want to do that. They want their money. They want you to re-sign and up and do these things. So, but for me, when I talk about tight budgeting and tips and coaching options, you as a company, you have the ability to craft that contract in a way for expectation. That's why I'm bringing this up. It's expectation, because if longevity matters, why not think about it in a different way of saying, maybe we only need them at this capacity. And some of these organizations are so large that they could be helping maybe 2 areas at a part-time capacity, right? Like what I guess where my point is going is when you're on a budget, again, people are so down at the bottom in the how and the tactical. This is where I think strategic thinking can really show its true colors and value, is getting them in the room to look up and start to look at the landscape at a higher point of view and say, okay, what's the connections and how can we do this in a better and smarter way, right? And of course, I love the game changers in that conversation, because they're going to get them to think outside of what they normally do. And so the combination of those 2 people in the room is where you're going to get some creative thinking happening to approach that problem. Because if you have a $100,000 budget, for example, there's probably 100,000 different ways to approach it. Wouldn't you like to figure out the most effective and smarter way to approach that problem? And then here's the thing. You can't approach a problem unless you really got to a point where you found a great problem. Not the surface level problem, which most of the time, that's where they're being highly reactive. And I'll go back to tips on showing how to do on a budget is really understanding what your true problem is. What is your true problem? And most likely when you are even trying to bring coaching in general, or if you're trying to train in general, there's always a direct correlation and connection to people. Would you probably agree with that, Roxana?
Well, absolutely. do have to ask.
I know that's like a rhetorical, but
that's one thing. And I think also I would like to see more flexible approaches on the part of people in the industry. So coaches, trainers, L&D people, HR people.
Oh, it goes both ways. Completely.
Because, right. And I mean, and be honest about what's possible, what's not possible. And I mean, we all know, or we were supposed to know, if you're a real professional in this industry, you know that results in this case are going to take time. So I think it's time for more people in this industry to be honest about, hey, the reality is I can come and deliver this for a week. But here is what you're going to get, what results you're going to get if I'm going to do it in a week, versus here's what results you can get and what benefits you can get if we get this flexible approach when we work from 1 week to the next and we work together for 1 to 3 months.
And they got to be open.
They have to be open.
The selling, right? That they're okay with that. And I think it's also a rethink on that end too.
Exactly.
That I can say a lot of people are so used to doing it a certain way that they're having trouble challenging and learning different approaches. I mean,
exactly.
That's
and
why I loved how I took a step back from Agile, because I actually
that helped you
in Agile, and I got a different perspective and approaches of how people are doing things out there. And I wouldn't even be where I am today in the thinking that I have if I didn't get out of that bubble. And so one of the things also when it comes to the tight budget and creative things is you don't always have to keep it in-house. You can always think about what would it look like if I had my champions and people that I know that can bring it back in. If they go out, what would they learn? What would they do? And if they come back in, will they help us grow with it as well?
Exactly.
That's another.
I can tell you
thinking about.
Exactly. And I can tell you the experience I see with the people in the league, in my group, is like they come from different countries, different industries, different levels of experience, but they all have similar issues. And it's like wow, what you just said blew my mind. And the fact is they learn not necessarily when they offer solutions and advice to each other, but also when they hear somebody else talking about their issue and their problem, and they start thinking, okay, what would I do if I was them? And that's why it's so powerful. But I think this is why, because you were talking about problems. So one thing, yes, totally identify the problem. And I think it's also the responsibility of the people who can help you with the solution to give you different kinds of solutions and to offer flexible solutions that are all a good fit for that problem. But here are different ways in which we can solve this problem. Because I haven't seen this kind of flexibility and transparency from a lot of people in the industry. Usually it was a lot about
because they want the money.
Make a quick buck. Exactly.
And they're more driven by that than what's probably smart. And I wouldn't say that it's not that they don't want to. I think there's also fear and doubt that the client wouldn't be open to it either. And so as much as we like to teach to remove our limiting beliefs in coaching, I think we also are a little, we don't kind of drink our own champagne. Mm-hmm. How much are we truly pushing it on our end?
Well, it's all about finding that middle ground. I mean, if you're never going to offer a different kind of solution, you will never know if it's accepted or not. And if it's not, if the client doesn't accept it, then what you can do is work with the client and reach a middle ground. That's because if the client understands that it's in their benefit and it's gonna bring better results for the same kind of budget, for the same kind of amount of time, maybe not time, but budget, right? But the benefits are gonna be bigger.
Yeah. And again, if you have a business, the whole point is, and I'm not saying it like to be philosophical and euphoric. I mean, if you're running a business, Your whole goal is to identify a problem, their biggest pain point, and you are the person that's going to provide the solution. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about what's right now. Let me say it differently. All of these options that we're talking about are turning into commodities out there in the market today.
Yeah.
We know that you either have the big shops or the boutiques that are really have come out of this in 2020 that really survived. The people in the middle are probably the ones that have struggled the most. So here's a great opportunity for everyone is what are you doing to differentiate yourself in your offerings and what you're doing? Are you going to do the same old, or are you going to come to the table in a different way or approach to help people? Because I think it's a great opportunity in 2021 to start showing your unique way of doing things. And that's why you should go to you. I'll leave it at that. Now I know we're closing.
Exactly. I mean, 2021 that's what I'm hoping to see more of. And I'm hoping to see more of that as we move forward. So it's like you said with the evergreen programs. I hope it's evergreen, because that's what we're talking about.
We are in the age of experimentation, and the reason why is I think it's proved its point. We don't know what we don't know. Don't assume that things are the way they are today, that they will be tomorrow. So it's a great opportunity to throw things out there and see what sticks, and start experimenting and trying these different approaches when you're selling options out there, or if you're a company looking for options, right? It goes both ways. This is the time to start differentiating and being very unique and authentic. What you're about. If you want to stay as a commodity, I think commodities are here to turn into dinosaurs. It's not what's going to take us into the future.
Exactly. I mean, they're not going to be here, but
some of them won't.
The whole point. Yeah, but the thing is, exactly, because if you don't grow, then what happens because that's the whole point of life, growth, because otherwise we die, right? We don't grow, we die.
When a business starts booming and becoming mainstream, like Agile has, if you're turning into a commodity, and this is what I always talked about Agile coaches, is now you have more competition. Now, of course, I niche down and I'm working with Scrum Masters. There's 1 million plus Scrum Masters on LinkedIn today. Holy crap. So what is this when it comes to businesses and what you're doing? This is why I'm saying this. When it becomes something so mainstream that companies are looking for, it's your time to differentiate and be unique. Commodity's not going to differentiate you in a mainstream market.
Exactly. And it's not, and the whole point of differentiating yourself is not just for the sake of that. It's a long-term benefit, because that's cool, how awesome you stay relevant.
Right? Cool, awesome solutions. Are you going to be people that are coming up with cool, awesome solutions and approaches that are going to help people? Or are you just going to be the everyday person? Right? It's like, are you going to go to Supercuts to get a haircut? Or are you going to go to that really cool hairdresser that just turns your hair into some fabulous work of art, right? That's what I mean. And you're going to know the difference between the two. I know that's probably some of you probably don't know what I'm talking about, but those of you that go to salons and you actually care about your hair, you know what I mean. Will you go to Supercuts?
And talking about hair, I don't know why I was thinking about gyms, but probably because they're closed here. So we're still in Toronto. Most of the area is under lockdown still. So probably that's why I associate them. But another thing is why I really believe that this kind of flexible approaches plus the community thing are the future in all of the programs related to personal professional development and transformation. Is because think about the gyms, the reason why they were invented and the reason why people go. First of all, They don't expect that they're going to be fit after going to the gym once and then that's it, or a week and then that's it. No, they go there regularly. And another thing that people missed the gyms for when they were closed is because they couldn't go, because they couldn't meet the people, because they didn't get the accountability, because they couldn't socialize and all of that kind of stuff.
Now, because it's something that they look forward to doing.
Exactly.
Right? Like I look forward to meeting my coaches that I work with Tuesday nights. I actually like
that's what the development programs are all about, or should be all about. How people feel, because at the end of the day, if they feel great, if they have a great experience and they have great memories of that program and everything that they learned, and not just that, everything that they were able to apply and the benefits, seeing some tangible benefits after months of doing the work, but actually enjoying doing the work, that is really the future of it. I don't see any other way around it. I see like the death of the dinosaurs, as you were saying, if they don't adapt to this model.
We're going to have to wrap up. So let's just do real quick. I'm going to run through the list and keep me honest here, okay? So take a big picture, know your entire landscape, so then you can get very strategic on what coaching really is going to look like and mean with a very holistic approach. That's number one. Two is think outside the boundaries on the possibilities for a solution, not just what is in front of you. Three is learning isn't a one and done thing. So when it comes to coaching and learning, there's an opportunity for pairing that, which could also decrease costs when it comes to your bottom line as a business, which goes with the strategy as well. Those are kind of related in there. And I think, what was the last one, if there was one, in all that we talked about?
I think it was more about, having a flexible, an open mind to receiving flexible solutions, and also looking for flexible solutions once you know what your problem is. Because that's what's been missing. And no, we're not used to what we were just talking about with evergreen programs, with programs where people come from different parts of the world and they join. These are things that for you and I, they might seem natural and normal and a benefit, but the reality is people weren't used to that. So I think it has to be, as you said, both. It has to come from both ways. So one thing is understanding that you need to offer more flexible solutions, and then understand that, hey, there are more flexible solutions out there. So let's see what they are and see how they can benefit me.
So what's our subject for next week?
Oh.
Our birthday week?
Can you believe it's March next week?
It's our birthday. It's our birthday. Woo! So,
oh yeah.
We actually have one day apart, Roxana and I, on our birthdays. So we decided to dedicate a whole show about Born to Be Us. We are going to actually interview each other. We are going to bring back up the Game Changer Index, because how we met each other was that we met each other with the GC Index. We're both GCologists. And our first conversation with each other, we found out that we have the exact same Game Changer Index profile results, which there's like 1,000 different things.
Yeah.
And I want to bring this back up because I've had a lot of conversations with people around personality and, how people don't believe in personality anymore and psychometrics because that doesn't matter. And I think it's an opportunity to talk about where this actually sits on your value base and has nothing to do with personality. Because you and I, we fare even different on personality. And I've gotten coaching. I've done personal transformation. I've worked on my beliefs, my subconscious, and I still am a game changer strategist. That hasn't changed. So I think it's going to be great for us to dive into Happy Born to Be Us as we interview each other and learn about what we do, where we came from, and that commonality that I just talked about. So I'm really excited about next week. What about you?
Oh, I'm not excited at all. No.
It's my birthday. It's my birthday.
So first of all, I can't believe it's already next week, because I remember when we scheduled this, it was a month ago, back in January, and we were talking
I
about what
know.
are we going to do in March. And I was like, oh my God, we have that first week. We should do something about our birthdays. So that's how we came up with the idea. And with us, it's always ideas just flow. So it was an easy one. But I'm really excited about this, because we talk about things that we're passionate about. And this is a chance for actually people to see why we're passionate about these things, and what makes us who we are, and what makes us what we're passionate about. So that's why I'm
Wow.
super
So
excited about
we
it.
get the spotlight. We get the spotlight. So
I
anyway,
know, yeah.
what are you doing?
Okay.
We gotta wrap
Okay,
up
so I was talking about the membership program. So it's called the Lead for Legacy League, and it is a global online program for management and leadership development. So currently there are people from Mexico, Romania, the UK, and Canada in the program. So again, it is the kind of program that I've always wanted to do when I was working in learning and development, because I believe in continuous development and continuous learning, and in the power of the group support and the power of consistency, because that's what we want. So what we do is we meet every week in live sessions, group coaching sessions, and strategy sessions, where people bring their own situations and we discuss about them, and they coach each other, which is great, because then they go back and they can coach their team as well. And they also find some solutions for themselves and for their organizations or businesses. And we also invite guest speakers. We actually had a guest speaker last week, and we have invited her this week too, because there were some questions left unanswered. So she's coming back. So
Awesome.
it's a combination of online training, group coaching, mastermind, brainstorming, networking, everything. And you can join at any time and leave at any time. So come on, give it a try for a month, see how it fits you, and then I'm sure that you'll decide to stay. Okay, so what about you?
So those of you have, yes, niche down and focus. I actually put my Agile coaching hat back on. I went back into the ring, but really focusing back to my grassroots of team coaching. But I am focusing on Scrum Masters. So I have I don't know if you want to put that up there, the Thrive for Excellence community, where it is all about for Scrum Masters that are very serious about advancing their careers. And they really want to stand out, get great jobs, and let's just get real, get paid. It's a highly competitive market out there, but it's highly lucrative. And so I developed this program to help Scrum Masters really figure out their true identity in how they lead as Scrum Masters, and really work on their personal market value. So this is not to learn Agile practices. This is about you and your personal development and helping you really shine out there. So come over to the Facebook group, fill out the form, and let me know what current challenges that you're having in your career. So take the time to actually fill that out. I'm going to be a little bit more pickier about when people come in the group and they're not completing that, because I really want people in there that really care about advancing their careers. So if you're going to come to the group, just be there because you want to be there, and take the time, because that's when we're going to get more engagement. I hate to say that, but I'm just being truthful here. Otherwise, you can follow me on LinkedIn as a grazer. I want engaging people in the group.
That's another key thing, engagement. I mean, join if you're going to participate. And I love that, because I know that you're also putting together a program for people transformation, which is awesome. So
Yeah, and you don't have
join the group if you don't want to miss the
and
info.
participation looks differently. But what I mean is at least fill out the thing and say why you're there. That's all I'm asking in the beginning.
Exactly. Okay, awesome. All right, so in the meantime, subscribe to our YouTube channel, because that's where you're getting all of the previous episodes, and that's where you're getting this. If you're not watching this live, that's where you're finding everything that we talked about. And we really talked about some pretty cool things here that you might benefit from. So check that one out. And yeah, join us next week for our birthday week. We're going to have a blast.
See you guys.
Bye.